Today I'm going to be looking back at the older fighters from previous Smash games and point out any possible changes to movesets or appearances or whatever that I feel like should be made for the following Smash game. This is absolutely not referring to the meta or the competitive side of Smash. I don't really care about that too much. This video is solely about the character or series representation and how I think it could be improved and updated. I know movesets never really change in Smash, ever, which is really annoying, but I do hope the next game breaks out of this curse and actually improves some characters because there's some in dire need of an update. I'm not going to be going through absolutely every character, there's some pretty great ones that don't need much changing, but I'll go through most and in the order that they were designated in Ultimate.
Mario!
Flood is a little outdated as it only represents Sunshine. If you removed it, it could actually work well as an item. I don't know if I'd outright replace it though. His older down special was more representative of his character, but also a bit more basic. And it's not like there's been a massive amount of Mario games that's come out since Ultimate that could give any ideas for new moves or anything. Perhaps something new from Mario Wonder could replace his down special, but I don't think a change is that necessary, it's just something I'm pointing out. For alternative costumes, I think it's kind of ridiculous how easy costumes could be for Mario, even just considering basic skin swaps of many items, not to mention suits in general. Fire Mario especially should return. It's a little silly that it was removed and instead we have some really weird costumes that aren't really from anything that stand out.
Donkey Kong!
One of the fighters that pretty much just had a random moveset based on nothing. There are some things like his down special and dash attack, but that's pretty much it. You could argue there's not much to work with his character, but I do feel like it's a cop-out to say that. He does deserve an updated moveset to have something more akin to his appearances in games like Jungle Beat and the Country series, even if it's only a bit of a refresh to his already existing moveset. Elements could be incorporated such as his abilities in 64, like the coconut gun, or maybe even barrels, which is a key mechanic of the series. It may clash with some stage hazards, but having the recovery be the barrel cannon would be a lot more suitable than some random spin. His final smash is pretty boring in Ultimate too, although I'm willing to let it slide because it at least references Jungle Beat. It just doesn't help with the image that DK gives off with having a pretty bland moveset in my opinion. And finally, given their similar build, a skin swap of Funky Kong or a color combination referencing him would be cool.
Link!
Link's appearance in Ultimate is kinda just completely scuffed at this point. The problem is that they tried to update his moveset to reflect Breath of the Wild but still retained most of his old moves, making for this really terrible compromise where both styles clash with each other. It does depend on what direction this series goes in, say a full reboot or another game like Ultimate, but the way I see it is that there's two ways that you could tackle Link, or you could also possibly make it two separate characters, and while we definitely need more Zelda characters, 4 Links is a bit overboard. The first way would to have Link just represent the whole series, not a specific game, but like his Hyrule Warriors appearance, and kinda like Smash 4 as well honestly. His design should incorporate elements from all of his adult appearances, and his moveset could probably just stay the same as it was back in Melee. Having the standard green tunic, at least as the main costume, would be the way to go as it's more iconic. The second direction would be to heavily lean on his appearance from Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity, and Tears of the Kingdom, and to completely design his entire moveset with those games in mind, utilizing the champion's powers, runes, ancient powers, and any other various elements. There is a lot to work with for a unique fighter, and I don't think it should be dragged down with his previous moveset. That said, if you did fully commit to having this modernized Link, young Link should be kept in the game to retain his old moveset with some alterations of course. Regardless, his final smash should be changed to anything that isn't the ancient arrow, which is a really weird final smash. Like what, did Sakurai watch the first trailer of Breath of the Wild and say, yes, that's gonna be Link's new final smash now? Instead of using the random ancient arrows for his final smash, if we're going to have it be based on Breath of the Wild, why not use something like the Divine Beasts instead?
Samus!
Definitely need to include her counter move from Samus Returns and Dread. Also her suit from Dread as well as her final form, which I won't spoil, would work well as alternate costumes.
Dark Samus!
Need to unclonify her ASAP. There's no reason she needs to be an Echo as there's a lot of room for a completely unique and original moveset, like with her assist trophy in Smash 4.
Yoshi!
Change his ugly, crafted world skin to either the woolly world one, or if not, just go back to the black Yoshi. That was my favorite skin.
Fox!
I know Fox is playable on foot in games like 64, Adventure, and Assault, but I don't think I'd really bother changing anything about his moveset, to be honest. That said, and this goes for both Falco and Wolf as well, well, I hate their final smashes in Ultimate. They're all the same thing. In fact, I know the Landmaster really sucked, but I really hate the cinematic final smashes in general. It's like all creativity was just thrown out of the window by homogenizing them all. For what? Competitive play? I understand it's hard to make these movesets in the first place considering there's not much to work with, but these characters are all samey enough as is, and there's not enough justification in having identical final smashes. So having radically different ones for each Spacefarer would be at least a step in the right direction. Foxes could incorporate the Landmaster, Falco the R-Wing, and Wolf could utilize his crew of Star Wolf in some fashion, rather than them all being identical.
Luigi!
His grab and final smash was a step in the right direction, but they should definitely revamp his entire moveset to be based around his appearance in the Luigi's Mansion series as a whole. His moveset in the games are a bit weird, to say the very least, and if they're not, they're very similar to Mario, so I really do think a complete overhaul of his moveset is worth doing. Specifically, the Poltergeist and various abilities throughout the Luigi's Mansion series, like the different lights and elements, would work very well in his moveset. It would be pretty cool if instead of green fire, Luigi would utilize electricity instead, like his appearance in Mario and Luigi. I think that would make him stand out a little better.
Ness!
After playing Earthbound, I have to say I'm kinda confused why Ness's moveset is even the way it is, considering he can't even use PSI Fire, Thunder, or Magnet, nor Starstorm, but I guess that's fine now considering Pooh jumps in. That said, the moveset is fine, I guess. I don't really see the point in changing it, unless the next game is a complete reboot and all the characters get overhauled movesets, or something to be more accurate to their appearances in their games. Also, I mentioned this in a previous video, but I would like to see Ninten as an alt costume or Echo.
Jigglypuff!
One of, if not half, of Jigglypuff's costumes should have green eyes because that's what her shiny is in the Pokemon series. The skin color doesn't really need to be changed because it's so similar, but that would also be a nice touch. Also, her final smash, which is really stupid and I think could be completely redeemed without really changing anything. Just add on some visual effects, the red aura and lighting, and the clouds on the top of her head, and voila! Same exact thing, but now it's a Dynamax Jigglypuff.
Peach!
Not that I blame them at the time, but Peach's moveset now feels a bit uninspired and random. It doesn't really represent her character at all, and most of the moves she has are a bit questionable. There are some things you could retain, like her recovery, down special, and side smash, but I think reworking her entire moveset around her appearance from the upcoming Princess Peach Showtime could be great, and maybe even sprinkle some Super Princess Peach in, possibly. Her alternate costumes as well could be very easily derived from Showtime. If you were to completely change up her moveset this way, I don't really see the problem with having Daisy retain the older, outdated moveset, although if that's in the next game with all the characters and if all the previous characters are getting completely revamped, I doubt that would happen, but maybe I'm thinking about that too hard. If we are going to cut characters, which I don't really think is that far-fetched to say it is an inevitability, I don't know why anyone would complain if Daisy could just be a skin swap of Peach like Elf is to Olimar, and in fact I don't even know why she is a separate character in Ultimate anyway. Either way, Peach and Daisy's final smash is very strange, like Jigglypuff's actually. It's definitely one of the remnants of the dated Smash Brawl final smashes. Truth be told, there's not really much to work with, at least as of right now prior to Showtime's release, but I mean, anything would be better. Say using Toads or something like Pit's old final smash, just as an idea, it definitely needs to be updated.
Bowser!
Bowser kinda drew the short straw for his moveset in Melee. His appearance in general in Melee and Brawl was really off-putting to me, and his moveset was very basic. They somewhat redeemed him in 4 onwards, at least by appearance, but even then, you could do a bit better than this. Like Donkey Kong, Bowser's moveset could be completely overhauled in my opinion, basing his moves on more on what he actually does in the Mario series than whatever's going on in Smash. And unlike Donkey Kong, there is a lot to point to, mostly his final bosses in all the mainline Mario games, not to mention any RPGs.
Sheik!
She should really be included back into Zelda as a transformation character. I was really surprised that didn't happen with Ultimate, like what happened with Pokemon Trainer. I don't know how to feel about Sheik, honestly. She really is just an odd character to even have represent the Zelda series. And if I had full creative control for the next game, I'd probably just remove her outright in favor of Impa. That said, if we are keeping her, which is more than likely, her moveset just ain't it. It has no resemblance or any ties back to the Zelda series at all. I'd love to see a moveset be more akin to her appearance in Hyrule Warriors. They're based on the songs she teaches in Ocarina of Time, rather than being a generic random ninja. But the problem with her that pretty much her entire identity and popularity was birthed through the Smash series. She's kinda similar to Captain Falcon in that regard, so I don't know if changing her up or flat out removing her would piss off a considerable amount of the fandom, but whatever, that's just how I feel about her.
Zelda.
I love how Zelda's specials resemble the magic abilities from Ocarina of Time, however her down special is very out of place. It's kinda cool, but why is an adult Zelda summoning Spirit Zelda and a set of armor out of nowhere? It would be nice if it was incorporated into Tetra or Toon Zelda's moveset instead. This would easily be improved by just making her a transformation character again, to be honest. Or you could give her a more standard magic attack for a down special. If not, say if we're going back to Ocarina of Time, having some standard light magic based on her actions in the final boss would make her specials a lot more consistent, albeit a bit more boring. For her final smash, bring back the light arrows. It represents her character very well because it's canonically powerful. She uses it in Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Spirit Tracks, and Breath of the Wild. Why does she now have a random triangle attack that means nothing? Is it because Link got the random ancient arrow attack that clashed with it? Even though that's also a terrible final smash? Oh, what were they thinking?
Dr. Mario.
Really should have just been an Echo. In fact, why isn't he an Echo? For the following game, if we're not doing the whole everyone's back shtick, I'd rather him just be a skin of Mario and not bloat out the game's roster like Daisy, as I said.
Pichu.
Same as Dr. Mario in the sense that it really should have just been an Echo, but I don't think a skin would work in this case. With its own skins, I'd like to say give it a shiny variant, but that would have to be based on the older designs because the newer shinies are, from what I can tell, pretty much identical.
Lucina.
Honestly, would people be mad at me if I just said to have Lucina be an alt costume to Marth? I really just don't like having an unnecessarily bloated roster of clones, but that might just be me.
Young Link.
This applies to Toon Link as well, but I don't understand why neither of these characters were labelled as an Echo Fighter. Young Link was always so mishandled in Ultimate, as with all the Zelda fighters, but whatever. There was the perfect opportunity to have a Fierce Deity Link final smash. It's not like Young Link previously had a final smash. This is a different character from regular Link. Even if you had to maintain an identical moveset for some reason, there's so much room for creativity with a new final smash, but instead, we got the same Triforce one that doesn't even really mean anything. I know this is making a completely new character at this point, but I would have loved it if Young Link became a transformation character a la Pokemon Trainer between his Deku, Goron, and Zora forms. I'd absolutely love that character. Regardless, for alt costumes, besides the color changes, it would be cool to have different equipment, like different shields and swords that he obtains in Majora's Mask, and I guess this would apply to the other Links as well. But while this is the Zelda series we're talking about, that's never gonna happen.
Ganondorf.
Yeah, Ganondorf's moveset is totally fine, no changes needed whatsoever.
Nice.
Easily the worst character in Smash. I guess this is a bit of a side tangent, but it will never not bother me that the game he finally gains swords as an attack is when he changes to his Ocarina of Time design, which is the only incarnation of Ganondorf that doesn't use a sword. In general, his slower movement and like one unique move is so much more suited towards his Twilight Princess appearance. And look, I'm not against having an Ocarina of Time Ganondorf, but why did it need to come at the cost of removing Twilight Princess Ganondorf? Why does Ike get two designs, two different voice clips, but not Ganondorf? It's so frustrating. Completely redo his moveset. It needs to be redone. It's an insult to one of the most iconic and popular gaming antagonists of all time for him to be Falcondorf. And not just that, but for 4 entire Smash games. Use magic-based attacks, use sword attacks, use corruption from Tears of the Kingdom. I don't care. Anything would be better than his current moveset. He would have been a more fitting Mewtwo clone than a Captain Falcon clone.
Mewtwo.
Hey, speak of the devil. So can someone explain to me why barely any of the Pokemon in Smash have shinies? The first thing you'd think of doing with an alt costume for any Pokemon would be their shinies, but it's like Sakurai went out of his way to make sure that Mewtwo didn't get a shiny. I get it in Melee, but come on. Every color besides green is here, but oh, like 3 brownie oranges is fine. Whatever. Well, I guess that yellow is sort of similar to his Gen 2 design, but it's still ridiculous. Also, Shadow Mewtwo from Pokken would be cool, otherwise his moveset is fine.
Crom.
I've always felt in general that Chrom came off as a very rushed character for Ultimate. I can't put a finger on it, but his model looked pretty off, his animations especially, not to mention Robin's final smash, of course. Does he really work as a clone of Roy, or was that only done as a way to include him in the game? I don't really know what to say about Chrom, to be completely honest. If we went back in time 5 years, or whatever, when he came off as more popular, I would have advocated for him to have a more unique moveset, to have something more based on his animations from Awakening, but these days it's really hard to say that, considering that, well, yeah, ignoring Byleth, there's 5 strictly just sword users for the Fire Emblem series in Smash, and while it would be nice to make it so there aren't 4 clones of the same general moveset, by having Chrom be more unique, I feel like it would be better to just not include these characters in the first place and prioritize more interesting classes from the Fire Emblem series in the form of new characters. All I'll say is that I feel like Chrom got a bit shafted, and the damage has kind of been done at this point.
Dark Pit.
I don't really like Echoes in Smash if that hasn't been made obvious so far, because all it does is bloat out the roster unnecessarily and lock characters into having identical movesets for no reason. To me, either have Dark Pit as a skin swap of Pit, or if they're gonna keep him as a unique fighter, how about using his character as an excuse to make more references to Uprising? Considering how unlikely any new characters from that series are going to be included anyway. Say changing his down special to a different set of Orbitars, or using his staff as his neutral special instead of his final smash, just as some examples.
Zero Suit Samus.
Okay, so if the next game is made from scratch, and we can't use any of the code or assets or anything from the previous games, this character would be an immense waste of time to put in. I'm sorry, but why of all characters is Samus without a suit in this game? I will never understand that. This is definitely another Sheik moment, but whatever. What I would love to see is giving actual Samus a little more personality. I mean, not other M personality, but taking her helmet off in the victory animations, or maybe some basic voice clips. And, you know, just remove Zero Suit. Okay, next.
Wario!
I guess having a few more elements inspired from the Wario Land series would be nice. His moveset in general is kinda odd, so, well, I don't really know.
Pokemon Trainer.
The moveset is great. If you haven't realized it yet, I have been skipping quite a few Brawl characters, mostly for the fact that they are pretty good. That said, it's time for another installment in Shiny Pokemon Rant. Honestly, I feel like especially with Charizard, all these skins are kinda just random skins that then afterwards people try to relate loosely back to in-game sprite coloring. We kinda have emphasis on the kinda, shinies for Squirtle and Ivysaur. Squirtle's is somewhat close, and to be fair, his shiny in the Pokemon series is pretty inconsistent anyway. I would have made his skin more pale instead of teal though. Ivysaur, again somewhat there, but it should have been a lot greener. I don't know why in Smash these two skins look pretty similar in color when they're pretty different in Pokemon, but whatever. Charizard has its old shiny, apparently, which I mean, really? Is the complete wrong shade and the wings are the wrong color. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is just a purple Charizard and it's just a coincidence. Speaking of Charizard, he is like the coolest shiny of all time. But yeah, right, it's just missing. Fair enough. Why am I being so anal about shinies? Shut up. Before moving on, unless we get a completely new Pokemon trainer, which, okay, that would be a pretty cool character. I should have probably included that in my first video. All the costumes in Ultimate are based on trainers from the other games, so why not take it a step further and have Beyond Red and Leaf, all the other trainers, or at least a select few. That would be a neat addition.
King DDD.
Could have a skin based on his appearance from Forgotten Land, plus maybe some of his moves could be changed a little to reflect that game. I mean, I just like him in Forgotten Land.
Olimar.
I don't know how hard this would be to implement, but I think it would be cool to give Elf Rock Pikmin instead of Purple Pikmin. They're pretty much the same thing anyway, so it would fit. It is just a model change, but I don't know if it's large enough to justify making him an Echo or not.
Lucario.
Let's get the obvious shiny point out of the way. What is up with Lucario's costumes anyway? Half of them are just blue for no reason, and I can't really seem to find if they're based on anything in particular. I don't want to spend the whole day talking about this, but surely there's countless Pokemon out there that you could base color schemes on. But regardless, his shiny at the very minimum should have been included. In terms of his actual moveset, why does he need to have a counter? Why do half the Pokemon in Smash have a counter move anyway? In fact, Lucario doesn't even learn Double Team naturally in his learn set in Pokemon. Why does he even have this move? Just outright remove it, and in favor, obviously we should be giving him one of his signature moves, Bone Rush. I don't care about the specifics to be honest, I just think that suits him a lot more and would have made him a lot more interesting too.
Rob.
Rob's only got like 2 games, so maybe it would be cool to have Stack Up represented in his moveset too, or maybe not. Either way, something I'd love to see in his alt costumes is leaning a lot more into resembling actual consoles. It's kind of like the case with Virtual Boy, but going one step further and adding in little details like a logo or text or color scheme based on the console would be really cool, but definitely keep his green one.
Greninja.
Greninja's black ult needs to be altered just a tiny bit to actually resemble his shiny. It's just so frustrating because of how close it is.
Robin.
If Chrom is returning, can we please not have Robin's final smash have Chrom in it? So who should replace him? I don't know, Morgan, his child, or someone. It's been so long since I played Awakening that I forgot all the characters. Anyone would be better though.
Duck Hunt.
Dog. The name needs to be changed ASAP. Duck Hunt Duo for the international version is an absolute minimum.
Incineroar.
Needs a shiny. Wait, you cannot be serious. They actually added in a shiny Pokemon ult? But yeah, just change the light grey fur to white and we're golden.
Piranha Plant.
Remove him from the game.
Pyra.
And finally, Xenoblade 2's waifus. I think having Rex in the background like Pokemon Trainer, I'm sure wouldn't be too hard to implement, right? I think it would be cool. I think something like that was considered but didn't make it in, and I really failed to see the issue of implementing it. And yeah, I guess that's everything. Or everyone. I did definitely gloss over or flat out skip most of the modern characters, but there is a reason for that. With Brawl, but especially 4 onwards, the fighters for the most part actually have good movesets, so I wouldn't really mess with any of them. In fact, I kinda wish I didn't have to make this video and the Smash series just updated movesets with each sequel. It really sucks when there's an older character that has a really shite moveset and the devs just refuse to change it. It's day and night when you compare it to a newly released character. Honestly, there's a part of me that would even prefer them to just not include them at that point, as it's less insulting. To be honest, I'm thinking about Ganondorf, but yeah, it's definitely an issue of other characters like Dark Samus as well. Anyway, I'm sure I missed a lot, notably the third-party characters. I forgot to mention that in the introduction, but I am planning on making a standalone individual video on third-party characters, veterans and franchises, stages, etc. later down the line, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. But otherwise, I'm sure I still missed a bunch of the first-party characters, so let me know if there's anything you'd like to see changed that I didn't mention. Or you'd like to see me be spotted or something for saying Sheik and Zero Suit should be removed, but the next video should be on the actual roster itself, what I would expect for a reasonable roster size, what characters could be reasonably included, etc. So stay tuned for that if you're interested, and check out any of my previous videos if you haven't already. With that all done, thanks for watching, and insert outro here.